What's up? This is Best Interview, and I'm gonna try and continue the vlogs I've created. As you can see from the other videos we've shown, I have also shown some other time lapses of my other characters and designing I've created for 3D CG concepts, including some conceptual works in that sense. But this is going to continue the understanding of what I'm talking about for today's session, which is sculpting on a base mesh. When you saw the 13 and 14 vlog, it explained how I was able to create the base of that base body mesh, and I showed the sculpting part of it of some part. Then I showed the Universal Fighting Game Engine's concept output that I have shown and overall explaining what I'm doing. Now we're going to continue back on the base mesh, and this will probably explain what I'm talking about. Excuse me for my speaking sometimes as I'm trying to explain something and not look in a crazed motion of flow. So sorry about that, okay? It's all subjective. And now you're about to see this take on what I'm about to do. I'll go into my Blender, so I'm going to go here. Since you need to see all my whole screen, I'm going to show you this. So you guys remember this mesh, right? This good old mesh, right? You remember this mesh? See, we can do a lot more of this in the end. So we're going to try and go here. I'm going to press sculpt. I can't use the symmetry since the symmetry is really off here. Unless I press edit and or go to my edit mode and just click on this and then I sculpt. That does that, right? So I'll press edit and I move it right. So I actually do it really well in that sense. I'll do this again. I'll press sculpt. Here, you see? It's close to what I'm talking about. So if I click on this and edit, just move it right in that sense, or just edit here, just move it here like that. Sculpt. Now it moves like that. So I'm just easily managing the symmetry form and just moving it correctly on the right space of it. Now it's close, so I gotta redo this again and just put this back here. Sculpt, and then, alright, so we're going farther away, so we have to go back here in that sense. We're gonna sculpt, and so we're gonna press edit, back here, press sculpt, press edit, press here again as well, press sculpt. Okay, so we're gonna do this again. Press sculpt, and then press edit, and we're gonna just, there we go. And okay, it's kind of close, but not too close. I'm gonna try this again. Press sculpt again. So if this keeps happening in that sense, you can always do object, not origin, but you can always change symmetry depending what you want to do. So sculpt, and then I think symmetry is like that. So merge distance, oh, it's at 0. And there's a tower offset as well. So you can turn some of these settings off depending on what you want to do. If I do this like that, it does something like this. If I change it back to this one here, it does this. So I want to put this back to 1. And I want to go back to edit. And I'm just going to put this. There we go. Sculpt. So it's going farther away. So I got to put it over here more. Now sculpt. And then be in the right middle part of it. Sculpt here again. We're close. We're going to put this more here. Press sculpt. And then we'll press this again. Do this one more time. Sculpt. All right, we got it. So that was essentially the art. It was essentially the art of actually symmetrizing your work. And you got to use edit mode to move these things around, and that will change the symmetry of the tool you're using. It's almost crazy to figure this out, and you have to be crazy enough to do that. However, that's just me being subjective. If you tone it down and you see it on a very basic level, or you deconstruct it, you can learn your tools and systems in a highly skilled way, which I'm about to introduce. So, since we have this like all symmetrized, we can now do things like this. Easier work, and we don't have to do too much in that sense, you see? But before we do that, I am going to do something with my faces. You see this? So now I'm going to do this, and I'm going to essentially move this like that. And you see how the faces are moving like this? It's because the polygons aren't so detailed. So it's easier to control what you're actually making with more fidelity. Lesser polygons means lesser things to worry about when it comes to designing the details or the shape of the concept you're making. See? Now I'm doing this, and now I'm going to press I, which is inserting a face. Click on that, press Ctrl E. You do this like that, and you click on this. Extrude along normals, which will extrude into normals, not separately. Then we're going to look into the parts here and here, press R. Then we click on this, and then we're going to essentially, yeah. Now we got ourselves a nose we can use. Just like that, and cool. So before we do this, I want to try and add some edge loops here. So when we try and make more details to it, it won't end up looking creepy or even just like kind of stupid in that sense. So we're going to try our best to add as much detail without adding detail on the wrong areas. So do this here and here, 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 and here. Press W. Click on here as well, just like that. And then we click on this here, do this as well. There we go. And now we're going to press this. This is Alt-C, so it's Alt-C to use. And then that, press, actually that's loop cut. So we're going to click on this here, and click on this here as well, here as well. And then we're going to add some details on our nose by putting edge loops. In this case, I these edge loops, when you create the details, will make it look like it's actually like folded. Like a feeling of folding when you're folding something, and there's like a lot of strong detail at the very end of those folding points. This is what we're about to do in that sense. So click on this and click on that, here too. Alright, so now we have our base almost done, so we can actually do this now. Or actually before that, we have to do this, so yeah. Actually not right now. Alright, so this is good. So we're going to go here, object, and we're going to go into generate, multi-resolution, and we're going to subdivide. Again, now you see what I'm talking about, right? So now it makes the work here kind of, actually now it should be a little bit easier to actually parse details in. This means you have more control, but you also have more control when you're doing it on a low poly sense. So if I take this off, it does that, right? So I'm going to try and generate here as well. And I'm going to do this here, here as well. Goofy. Alright, so we'll do this here like that. See how I'm moving it in that sense? This is your move brush. This is the tool here. If you don't see this toolbar and it's crashed on like this, there's an arrow here you can look at, and boom, you have all your tools. The tools that you're probably going to need is elastic grab, your crease tool, or your actually flatten, elastic grab, and blob. Those are the only two tools you're probably going to need for this case in the end. Can you see? I'm trying to shuffle this. I'm trying to do that. So I'm going to do this here, put that there as well, here as well. And I'm gonna have to move, adding my tool got messed up, so I have to organize this in a way where it's symmetry in that sense. Just like that. Okay, got our tools here, Now for our eyes. So the reason why I made such details here is so that we can actually add more details here, just like that, and actually save more time by doing this. So now I can actually start adding the details here and actually change the eyes depending what's needed in that sense too. The eyes seem a little bit too big, so you can always just change them depending on what you want using the Move tool. And the Move tool allows you more control. But to add details or contrasting details, you need tools like this, like Blob, to essentially like add more creases and details depending on what you want to do. See? Now it's adding details here as well. And I'm going to add here more details here. Increase strength, which means strength will be increased here as well. And I increase the strength here as well. And I'm going to just decrease this. You see how I'm doing it? That's how you control your tools in that sense. This tool, the elastic grab, is your move tool in the end. Gives you control over what you're sculpting or whatever you're trying to create in that sense. So now I'm going to do this here. And I'm going to do this here as well. Just like that. Okay. So I think for this case, I have to fix this because it's not really looking normal. So I'm going to click on that. Click on this as well. Just like that. Press X and then. Alright, now we add our steps here. And now I'm going to add a chin. You see? With the control you have, you can add so much to this when you're doing it in the end too. So I can always return back to this, and I can always just change the details of what I want, and I can add more into it. So in this case, I can actually go into edit mode. See, we're entering back to the low poly stage of this by turning or changing the resolution of the sculpt. And check this out. We're going to control E this, and then we're going to essentially put this like that. And now, press this here, and I'm going to essentially bevel it. Press Control B, and it allows you to bevel, and that's what's going to happen. But for this case, we don't need to do too much. We just got to do enough to imply our point. So yeah, here. Okay. So now we're going back to Object, and we're going to turn on Sculpt. There we go. You see? So now we're going to press this. We're going to press that. You see how you have a lot of control over what you're doing when you plan some of these things out in that sense? So now we're going to press elastic grab, and we're going to just click on this, and we're going to click on that, and we're going to just click on this as well, click on that as well. And now I'm going to make a really tough chin here. Oh, not chin. I'm going to make a tough thing here. So you can also subdivide, and then that's what's probably going to happen. So now it looks like a high poly character. More control you have, or the more details you want to add, the more you have to add to subdivision as well too in that sense. See? Now we're adding details to it too. You see? And I turn this off. Does that now, you see? Just like that. And then we just add more details here. Alright, now I'm gonna clean it up. So I'm gonna clean this up. I'm gonna clean this up. Clean this up as well. Actually, I can use my subdivider here, or my sub tool here to do this as well. Just like that. Okay, so now I'm gonna have to fix that, and I'm gonna have to add it back in. So decrease the space here. Just like that, you see? Now you have actually some space and tools you can use now in that sense. It's all kind of sculpted. And now I'm going to... This is only a test, by the way, so if I'm trying to create this in a way like this too, you could actually do it in a better way as well, but for this case, I'm just showing what you can do when it comes to like a mesh like this to begin with. So this is just me trying to test my tools around, so that way I can actually like show more of that like control in that sense later on. And this is just the previous mesh I've used before, only this time I'm creating details on certain areas that need to have details to begin with. Like here, for example, you take this out, like that, or you can just like smooth it out. When you smooth it out like that, you're essentially enabling yourself to detail it kind of right in a sense. Just like that, just like that. It's not really what it is, but for now, it does suit what we can do in that sense. Alright, there's another tool I forgot, and I think that's crease polish. This tool allows you to actually create creases here. You see that? And you can create creases out here to some extent. You can actually like make like things and muscles and things like that too. This is only really good if you're trying to create like, for example, like you're trying to create some form of like sculpting in like a ZBrush way. These tools I'm showing in a sense are essentially meant to do for ZBrush techniques. This is like a ZBrush way of doing stuff. For example, if you use your Maya base mesh on polygon modeling, you can export that as an OBJ and then export that into ZBrush. And within ZBrush, you can then start sculpting your character into that as well too. Blender is essentially a jack of all trades. Very powerful, but a jack of all trades because it can do many things. In this case, it does what both Blender and ZBrush can do. Both applications combined in Blender. Hence, this tool is multifaceted to some distinct way in that sense. So I'm going to do this here as well, here as well too. Make this cleaned up. Here as well. And I'm going to go back to blob, click on that, and I'm going to just finish the ones here as well. And I'll put some on here, just like that. There we go. Now we can go back to our eyes and make them a little more intimidating in that sense. You see that? Or we can do something goofy in that sense. So for this case, we have created a interpretation of a muscular man. And oh, check this out. You remember how we created these things here too? Now we can actually add details here as well. So I want to increase my brush here, right click. You see, now I can create muscles here as well. This will give us more time to sculpt our body mass, depending, or we can use a crease tool and just crease our muscles just like that. You see? Just like that, you see? Just like that. Just like that. Just like that. Just like that. Alright, so now you overall understand what I'm talking about when it comes to creating this kind of style. So this is like a 21-minute explanation of explaining this, and it does show what tools you can use when you want to try and do this. Speaking of tools, when you press shift, I was actually using shift to smooth my tools. There isn't really a smoothing tool you can use here correctly. It's your shift key that's your shifting tool. And you press alt and middle key to move around, or pan. This is panning. Alt and left click is to rotate everything you see here in that sense. And alt and right click is to zoom. That's what I've been doing, so yeah. See, now we can fix this here, fix this here as well. Actually, I want to press these two key points here. I'm going to just click here as well. There. See, now it looks like a real nose you can actually see now in that sense. And I think there is a, yeah. There we go. There, you see? We added some details to it too now. This does take some time. You're not supposed to rush it. If you do rush it, you're not going to add the details correctly on what you're supposed to add in that sense too. So now we do this here, and we do this here. Now, the guy has a big chin now. You see that? This is not a perfect interpretation of a character, but it's suitable for people that want to understand how, to see, the eyes, nose, mouth. Doesn't have ears yet. But my other videos that I've created that are essentially time lapses do confirm and show the video and just confirm the process from a single cube into a literal character you can create. And I've shown the process from the body and everything else, from the hands, feet, eyes, nose, even hands too, and feet, legs too. And even the character's construction and just creating clothes too. If you check out my other videos, you'll start to understand what I'm talking about as I show the time lapse, and they'll explain more of that. You have also saw my other videos on how I can texture something of a character in a sense. Not fully advanced, but is advanced enough to understand your basic fundamentals before you try and do so. This is overall what you can do when you're trying to create something. It's not perfect to some extent, but once you get the hang of it on sculpting forms, you can essentially make your body mass of characters really distinct and toned. This is how you technically tone characters in the end too. And when you tone them like this in the end, you're essentially toning it in a way where you have control over what you're trying to tone. You see? Legs don't look so good. Just use the move tool to move them in that sense. And then you move it like this as well. And then it does this in the end too. You see? Just like that. And then, you can do that as well. And see, it's not so, yeah, like that, you see? And then you want to use a smoothing tool, it's your shift key. And your shift key will essentially allow you to do this in the end. Okay, so overall, you're starting to understand what I'm talking about when it comes to creating things in the end. The previous videos from last year do explain one part of it, one part of a million stars in the skies. But this is only basically the start. The more you practice in the end, the more you start realizing and growing to believe that a practice like this is very hard to do. And I say it's hard, but almost anyone can do it. Even a kid with a bright mind can try and do this as well. Or even a wise old man with really good hands and good mind or brain that still works could still do this as well. Almost anyone can do this. It's not limited by age. So there's no ageist ideologies or ageist concepts. Sorry for being a little bit too technical on my words. So when you see this in the end, you will then start to realize what I'm trying to imply as well. So now you see it, right? You're starting to realize now that you can actually create things based on what you want to do. For example, I can always just go back here and decrease polish and just create part of the muscles here. See? Blender has a lot of tools you can use. It's not always one way. There's many ways when it comes to Blender. Not to mention, you could technically do this without like add-ons. But you do use add-ons. It makes your life a lot easier if you choose to learn the tools you have. Blender is a free tool. So if you use anything that's free, always expect this one thing, that the value of it comes naturally the way you see and grow through it, and the more you compensate for that, the more power you put into what you create. This is just me explaining it. There's more I can add, more I can say, but for now, that's what I want to say for today's class, or today's session. I just wanted to say thank you so much for visiting my website or my YouTube channel, and thank you for just learning through me in that sense too, knowing what I create. There'll be more videos coming up, but the recent videos that I've shown are overall explaining the full processes, or at least some of it in that sense. The guard breaker video I've created of the character shows it from A to Z. All the processes to create a fully functional character, animated and rigged using Mixamo and polymodeled with some sculpting techniques. Watch those videos if you want to know way more about how to create these things in the end. There'll be way more in the works too, and the more you see those things in the end, the more you'll grow to understand and love the craft of creating something that you truly like. It's kind of like creating toys, but you're not creating it physically. You're creating the idea of the toy itself. That's the hard part. But the more you practice instead, the more you'll then start to understand what you're trying to do. The videos I'm about to show for the next few upcoming months will more or less show this. But I'm glad you're able to see and view my content, knowing what I've done so far too. So everything's been confirmed, it's been proven, so now you know. Thank you for watching, this is sending you out.